Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stober. The deficit in infrastructure has remained a major problem in Nigeria's economic development for so many decades. Although almost all previous administrations made provisions for infrastructure development, they hardly followed through with implementation. The Buhari administration set out to address this through construction, reconstruction, rehabilitation across many areas. In 2015, the government in the 2016 and 2017 budgets provided for capital expenditure of 2.7 trillion for development of infrastructure, of which over 800 billion naira was released up to 2018. This provision has been further complemented by the $650 million Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund, which will focus initially on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, Second Niger Bridge, the Abuja-Kano Expressway, and Mambila Hydro Power Plant. The government is also committed to partnership with the private sector, supporting the real sector, small businesses, and creating an enabling business environment. Now, this is the focus of NTA Tuesday Live tonight. But first, let's get to see this report by Serafina Okun.
Infrastructural development is a key growth driver for economic development of any nation. In the last 4 years, the present administration has succeeded in increasing power generation, transmission, and distribution. Over 90 transmission projects nationwide with Apo, Mayobelwa, Damaturu, Maiduguri, Odugunya and Ejigbo have been completed in the area of distribution. The evidence of the progress recorded in the power sector under President Buhari is captured in the National Bureau of Statistics report of 2018 first quarter, which shows a growth of over 7.5%.
Mambila is a hydropower project, but it is also a critical economic intervention for growth of the economy, for employment, and for competitiveness of the national economy.
On works, the construction sector in Nigeria plays an important role in the development of the nation's economy, as the construction industry is said to have contributed about half of the total stock of fixed capital investment in the Nigerian economy. With these in mind, the Buhari administration issued Executive Order number 007 of 2019, which established the Road Infrastructure Development and Refurbishment Investment Tax Credit Scheme. The scheme is a public-private partnership intervention in the delivery of good roads nationwide. Towards attaining national economic growth and development, the federal government also conceptualized the Vision 2020 program as a strategic development policy aimed at placing Nigeria in the league of the world's largest 20 economies by the year 2020.
We now have a Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council that is focused on just solving the problems that people face doing their businesses every day and that our citizens face. And that council is what led to the improvement in ease of doing business rankings for Nigeria, which had been going down for 10 years. For 10 years, Nigeria was deteriorating. But what we now have is a situation where Nigeria is adjudged one of the top 10 reforming countries in the world.
The federal government also embarked on public-private partnership scheme with a view to encouraging private sector to participate in road sector development, while it has collaborated with international organizations such as the World Bank and African Development Bank in order to facilitate the national roads development. Another vital project to be executed in similar manner is the proposed Second Niger Bridge, which is currently under construction. Others have been in Shagamu Dual Carriageway, Kano Kaduna Abuja Dual Carriageway, and Lagos Badagry Seme-Border Dual Carriageway. The Buhari administration has demonstrated a single-minded commitment to upgrading and developing Nigeria's transport, power, and housing infrastructure.
It is government's desire to see the level of homelessness and shortage of accommodation reduced.
The federal government also made giant strides in the railway sector by completing and commissioning the Abuja-Kaduna rail line and the Abuja Metro Rail project. Priority projects such as the Abuja-Kaduna-Kano Highway as well as the second Niger Bridge are well underway through the Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund. Various projects such as road, rail and power are on schedule. Lagos-Ibadan Standard Rail Project, Abuja-Kaduna-Zaria-Kano Expressway, Enugu-Port Harcourt Expressway, Kefi-Akwanga-Lafia-Makurdi Road, Lagos-Shagamu-Ibadan Expressway, Kano-Maiduguri, and of course the second Niger Bridge. In the housing sector, the year 2017 and 18 witnessed a decisive approach towards tackling housing deficit in the country with the commencement of the National Housing Program executed in 34 states across the Federation, including the FCT. The Buhari administration is addressing fundamental challenges with the implementation of programs and policies aimed at improving the sector with commitment and the proposed annual provision of 100,000 housing units, which has raised the hope of reducing housing deficits to the barest minimum. With the heartwarming successes recorded in these sectors, how have they impacted on the economy? Guests on the program Tuesday Live will be giving answers shortly.
That report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. I'd like to introduce our guests. Well, for the first term of the Buhari administration, he superintended over the transportation sector as Minister of Transportation. Let's welcome Honorable Chibuike Rotibi Amici. Thanks for being here tonight.
Welcome. Thanks very much.
Right. I'd like to welcome Mainasara Kogo Umar, lawyer, international analyst in international relations, diplomacy, and good governance, a regular on this program.
Happy democracy in Nigeria.
Right, thank you. Let me also welcome Professor Joseph Odiguri, his Registrar Council for the Regulation of Engineering, Nigeria, Koren. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, sir.
And we're also joined tonight by Honorable Jude Tabai, his national leader, North-South Movement for Peace. Thanks for being here.
A pleasure.
Right. As we always do, we never get tired of it. We acquaint you with the procedure. At the appropriate time, you can be part of the discussion in the studio. The various platforms will be on your screen. We advise you take advantage of them. And we say this every Tuesday. For those who will be phoning in, do us a favor. When your call gets through to the studio, turn down the Buhari administration. So, but let's begin from what it was in the past years. And what we have seen along the line. Let's start with you. Before this administration came into office, what was the infrastructure like across the country?
I'll be the wrong person to answer that question, honestly. But then I don't have a choice because I'm before my friends and colleagues in the. Why I'll be the wrong person? So whatever I say, they will say we're passing through. But the deficit, the infrastructure deficit is huge. So huge that no matter what you do now, in 8 years, there will still be complaints. You can't cover the deficit in 8 years. Even if you have the time in 8 years to cover, you don't have the funds. You know, I had said before that we need about $36 billion and, to be able to do Lagos-Kano Railway, Port Harcourt-Maiduguri Railway, the central line which begins from Abuja and ends at Warri. This three alone will give us about $36 billion. And you don't have that kind of money. The same with roads. I'm told that over 1 to 2 trillion naira to be able to cover the roads that have been abandoned. So if you see somebody, like for instance, we're doing the Enugu Port Harcourt Road, and then some people say, we're not seeing anything. You're not seeing anything because we don't have the money to get the contractors to be faster than we can afford. So the deficit is huge. And it's not just patience. The community, the Nigerian community is a bit impatient with us because they want a solution. And we don't. You can't say it's former government because for them, government is continuous.
Right.
But are we doing our best? The answer is yes.
Okay.
Do we have enough money? The answer is no.
Right. But you blame the people for being in
No, I'm not. I don't. But I say, but they must also know what a human being is capable of doing, and what they're not able to do.
Mm-hmm. All right, we'll return to you, but Mainasara.
Yes. When you have the doing of infrastructure by the side, you presume that there won't be need for you to say anything. But nevertheless, like you said, we should recapitulate the state of things before the coming of this administration. If you take, for example, from November 15th, 1884, when there was this Berlin conference where the Europeans scrambled for the partition of African nations in order to solely colonize them. One particular thing they succeeded in seeing is the enormity or the significance of laying infrastructure for developmental purpose. No nation attains development higher than the quantum and quality of the infrastructure it has in place. So from that 1884 up to 1960, that is one of the reasons whereby they had successful colonization over us. They succeeded in laying a lot of infrastructure, rail lines, roads, especially waterways. Now, at the end of it, when we get independence, especially during the Gawan time, we succeeded in establishing a lot of infrastructure in the country. Going by the trunk-A roads we have, going by the establishment of educational infrastructure, universities and the rest, going by the establishment of a lot of hydroelectricity generating plants, going by the establishment of airports, rail lines, and so many other things that are endless for you to mention. Now, we got a period of long neglect, which is what my brother is lamenting about. It was a period of huge neglect in such a way that when the administration came on board, virtually there was nothing on ground regarding infrastructure. If you take, for example, this major road from Kaduna down to Mokwa, Jeba, and the rest of them, it was totally a dead road. If you take again the example of Kaduna to Abuja, it was down dead. Even if you take the simple example of the Lokoja to Abuja road, which took over 16 years, just about 200 kilometers road, difficult for the 16-year rule of PDP to even fix on the road on. You understand? So you will discover that really gargantuan, unsurmountable challenges regarding infrastructure, was the inheritance gotten by the administration. But nevertheless, they took the ball by the hand. If you take, for example, what most of the young people of the ages of 30, 40, and lower ages of such ranks know, they hardly know about rail transportation until the coming of this administration. We now have rail transportations cutting across with even promise of linking up all the state capitals with railway lines. Apart from that, virtually all our premier airports are now fixed of global standard. Apart from that, if you take the issue of road construction itself, you don't need to tell anybody about the excellent work being done, or whether it's through the issue of sukuk investment or whatever type of bond. But the important thing is that people are seeing on ground. If you take the quantum of the developmental stride by virtue of Section 14, subsection 1 of the Constitution, it is really people-driven, because infrastructure is the real springboard upon which developmental compass of any society propels. So we have seen a lot of it. The Kano down to Maiduguri Road, we are seeing reality on it. The Kano to Katsina, we are seeing reality on it. The Kaduna down to Abuja Road, from Kano down to Abuja Road, we are seeing reality of it. We are seeing realistic pledge and entrenchment of promises. And economic development, as far as Section 16 of the Constitution, is impossible when you don't have the springboard. The springboard is infrastructural development, and it is gratifying the quantum of the entrenchment we have gotten within the last 4 years. I believe if we replicate that or even surpass that at the next level, Nigeria definitely will be a model for the world to copy.
Okay, let's talk to a professional who sees various kinds of infrastructure in their state. And I'm talking about the registrar of the Council for the Regulation of Engineering, COREN, Professor Joseph Odiguri. Let's hear your views on this.
See, development is not necessarily started with infrastructure. Development is about ideas, integrity, ability to hold fast to what you believe. I think that is where we should start from. The decay in the mentality of people to sustain what they have.
So that translates
to everything that we see. No matter how we want to look at it, it's not issue of not having. It's issue of how do you apply what you have. To a large extent, we have neglected the fact that infrastructure is not just what we see, but ownership was signed into law. And what is the difference between 2004 and 2015 is the fact that engineers own what they do. Ownership to prosecute, ownership to regulate every strata of education and practice of engineering in Nigeria. That is where development starts. When you can fix a law and that law has an enabling instrument to enforce it in the population. With this law, I think we are going to move into a different way of regulating practice and education of engineering, which is the base. Because everything is driven by ideas. Everything is driven by ownership. And we are very optimistic because now you have the power to prosecute, to tell people this is what you are doing. Not just local people, right from the state of procurement to the state of implementation. And right from the state of knowledge transfer. Executive Order 5, for example, speaks more about transfer of knowledge. We have depended so much on the foreigners to develop. But now even that clause is becoming more standardized, that no foreigner enters this country without that clause of technology transfer. And I think that is the beginning of what should be for us to see a radical transformation of infrastructure development in Nigeria. It's not enough to say I know how to construct road. It's enough to say I have laid down the principles of the design, I have laid down the integrity, I've laid down the codes that enable the next person coming behind you to understand what you did and be able to take it a little bit further. I think that is the biggest achievement I can say of this administration, signing the new act of COREN into law.
Okay. Let's go over to Honorable Jude Tabai, national leader, North-South Movement for Peace.
Well, I think what I need to tell Nigerians is about what we are seeing live. It's all about what we see with our eyes and not what we hear. Nigerians are used to what people tell them or what they hear on TV or what they just hear on social media. Very few Nigerians actually take part to go and witness things themselves to be able to analyze true situation of the roads and the infrastructure in this country. And I think for me, we are heading to a very, 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 very impressive outing. In the last 4 years, I must tell you, it's the beginning of development in Nigeria. Before now, I'm someone that travel along the road. I travel a lot. And each time I travel, I try to see what's going on. I come down, I try to monitor things that are happening and ask questions. And if you travel along the creek, all the way from Abuja to the north or to the south, you are seeing physical presence of structures that are taking place, works everywhere. People are busy. And I think that changes the tide, because before now, it's a situation whereby you see contracts are just abandoned everywhere, and you're beginning to wonder what's going on. There's no this cohesiveness on contractors to make sure they follow up these jobs. So you just see it's like whoever carries it takes it home. But today, the fear of tomorrow will never allow any contractor abandon any job. And that alone has created an impact all over the country that contractors seem to be very, very busy with what they are doing. And that is the Nigeria we're praying for. It's not the Nigeria where you believe it's your party, it's your money, you're in charge and nobody. But with the Nigeria today, you must work and get paid for it. And you must also get paid when you work. It's not an issue of where you give jobs to people and there are no monies to pay them. This is a situation where monies are made before jobs are awarded. So I think it's a far different cry from what we used to have before.
Well, I'd like to take it from the point that Professor Diguri was raising, that everything starts with ideas. And it's not just, the fiscal structures. Put the fiscal structures without the idea of how to own them and manage them, then whatever massive investments you make may well go down the drain. There's also the other side of it. People have said, in trying to address a deficit, could you by any way be caught in the trap of taking on too many things at the same time? That's looking at it from the other side.
It's also a difficult argument to make when you talk about ideas. I'm the minister. Well, but it's about 12 midnight. By midnight, you're no longer the minister for transport.
Right. No, don't worry. Still have about an hour to go.
Second level.
You still have about an hour.
But the point I'm making is that
yes,
there's no society that grows without these ideas. The ideas are already there. You don't have to go back and redevelop the ideas. Engineering ideas are engineering ideas. If you're a civil engineer, it's civil engineering all over the world. If you are a mechanical engineer, you're a mechanical engineer all over the world. There is no special training you go for in terms of leadership. What you need in leadership is commitment, patriotism. You really need to care about your people. The question to ask is how many of us actually care about the country? If we do care about the country, the kind of bleeding will bleed this country, won't do it. But you see, there's no moralism in leadership or even in existence in the country. People want to make money. What checks that excesses is the enforcement of law. So if he diversifies or if he tries to expand his argument, then you go to the issue of implementation of law enforcement or enforcement of law. And what does the law say at any particular point in time? Because even that engineering or the ideas he's talking about is governed by these laws. Now, but when you finish all these ideas, the template by which it is brought to bear, without which these ideas mean nothing, is infrastructure. So if I want to do a research, I must have a lab. If the lab doesn't exist, then there's no idea, because you die in your head. So what therefore will govern the country is the existence of this infrastructure, because an engineer is an engineer to the point that he can construct a road, to the point he can build a railway, to the point that he can build a house, to the point that he can apply those ideas that he has in executing the environment or making the environment conducive for those who live there. And he cannot have those ideas if people did not put in place the infrastructure with which you can think through it. So I want to do a research, so I go to a library. Those turns around. So most economic growth is dependent on infrastructure development. The reason why, and I made that assertion to a friend of mine in Lagos when the person was saying, oh, things are hard in Nigeria now because we refuse to share money. I said, see, when we are sharing money, we built a pyramid. So we created very few billionaires that are walking around the streets saying they are billionaires without productive capacity. And that productive capacity is also dependent on infrastructure. Right. So once those billionaires came, they shared, if they stole or took $1 billion from the Nigerian coffers of the Nigerian government, they gave each of us $10,000. Now that money we were sharing and the money we were taking away, well, the money we would have used to build those infrastructure. So the deficit you have is a result of the poor management of our resources. And so, it couldn't cascade down. So what the government is doing now is to say, okay, this pyramid will have to be narrowed. And to narrow it down, we will not give these billionaires any more money. We will build infrastructure down there. And as they build infrastructure, people are getting paid their salaries. And as they're getting paid their salaries, it's getting to the growth of the economy. That's why we could come out of the recession in less than 1 year, when World Bank predicted that we'll come out in 3 years.
Right.
Because of the infrastructure we started building.
Okay. Now let's look at some of those, and that's the other side of it, which I raised before. Yes, the people were in a hurry, and understandably so. Take, for instance, transportation, where people wanted everything to come as quickly as possible. How have you been able to balance the expectations of the people with the funds available and to put something on ground?
It's a very difficult. You're almost at a crossroad in that kind of situation. You start off now with railways. So the president says, "Look, Amici, your responsibility is to make sure that you deliver railways." So the people from this, it becomes political. The southeast people say they want railway. The northeast say they want railway. The northwest say they don't want railway. And the south side people say they want railway. The best thing you do is to ask yourself one basic question. The basic question you ask yourself is, what makes economic sense? What rail line do I construct now that will make economic sense? So you get the economists to do for you a study. The study we've done so far in Ministry of Transportation is that the most viable railway in Nigeria is the Lagos to Kano. It has about 30 million tons of cargo. After Lagos to Kano, the next most viable railway is the Port Harcourt to Maiduguri. After Port Harcourt to Maiduguri, the next most viable railway is Lagos to Calabar. Before you talk about the Central Line, which is Abuja to Warri. Okay, so when we came, we looked at it and saw that the current 25-year program that Abuja developed did not terminate at the seaports. So we had to get all these rail lines to terminate at the seaports. Now, when you look at that, you ask yourself, after rail line, the rail line moves the largest volume of cargo. Next one is the airlines. So you deal with aviation. That's why the focus you see now for the Ministry of Transportation is railway, aviation, and maritime. After maritime, inland transportation. So you talk about the Inland Waterways Authority. So the consideration is basically what makes economic sense. And I've told you the 4 lines that make economic sense. The rest will come with time. But we're under a huge political pressure. So you ask yourself, will it not amount to doing everything at the same time? Well, even if you want to do everything at the same time, where is the money? Let me give, for instance, the amount of time it is taking us to construct Lagos to Ibadan is the amount of time it will have taken us to construct Lagos to Kano. 3 years. To do Lagos to Kano is the same amount of time to take you to do Lagos to Ibadan. Lagos to Ibadan is 156 kilometers. Lagos to Kano is about 1,300 or 1,500 kilometers. The same time. Why? The moment you give us all the money, then you put gangs. A gang or 3 or 4 gangs between Minna and Kaduna, 3 to 4 gangs to Ilorin, 3 to 4 gangs to Ibadan, 3 to 4 gangs from Kaduna to this. They will all construct at the same time and deliver the same result at the same time. But what slows it down? Money. That's why we are taking Lagos to Ibadan first. If we get the next money we've applied for, we'll take Ibadan to Kano with all those gangs. But the way to understand and manage the pressure is to see the grey hair on my head. Anywhere you go to, you're not going to go anywhere. And you just know that the responsibility is to protect the president. But the president has given you a directive, then your job is to go and look for the money. And the money is just not available. It's not.
Okay, wait a second.
Yes.
Take it
Here is your bank of eminence.
Right.
Happy birthday. So celebrate your birthday.
Still on the premise of rail transportation.
On the process of the transportation generally, I do appreciate the submission of the Honorable Minister that we are extending the take-off point of the rails to the sea, which is very, very important, because it is from the sea you move goods to the hinterland. And that is one of the cardinal objectives of rail transportation. And tying that again to the issue of development, the government is not relenting, is not restricting itself to rail, for example. The dredging of the river Niger, for example, establishment of a very important strategic port at Baro, from where you will have the opportunity of these rail lines to be able to bankroll goods down to the hinterland ports. This is a revolution in terms of industrial development in Nigeria, because it is unprecedented. You have a lot of hinterland ports that will be utilized courtesy of the establishment of the Baro ports and courtesy of the dredging of the river Niger, which has been swindling for long. Every government will come, the contract will be terminated, another government will come, will say, we will dredge river Niger. Now we have seen it. And something fundamentally novel happened yesterday, when the President, His Excellency President Buhari, hosted the business sector in a dinner. That one is very, very historic. I couldn't blink my eyes. I was watching it with keen interest, because everywhere in the world, wherever you see development, development doesn't just happen on the caprices of only the government. there must be private sector involvement. And by extension, what I mean by private sector involvement, it means stakeholdership, stake ownership of the infrastructure by the citizenry. All the giant business mongols we have in the country assembled at the presidential villa, and they gave the president their words that they will partake in the infrastructural development and by extension in economic redemption of the country, and by extension in getting employment for the citizenry. The issue of deficit, we have started even going beyond that. If you take, for example, in the sector of electricity, we have surplus of the generated megawatts. As against the lower than 3,000 megawatts, now we are boasting of about 8,000 megawatts. The difficulty we have is that the infrastructure there is not sophisticated, so it is not sophisticated enough to be able to dispense the 7,000 or 8,000 megawatts. Otherwise, it will end up burning a lot of to diversify, because in the next 20 years, oil will not be lucrative. So Nigeria is looking ahead towards the possibility of getting these foreign investors to come and invest in extraction and utilization of our rich solid minerals deposit. All over the world, you have the total of 121 solid minerals. Nigeria is blessed with 98 of that number. So there is no reason why we will not be able to extract these solid minerals, so that by the time we use, for example, uranium, we'll be able to have establishment of this nuclear electricity in the country. We'll be able to use the water we have. We'll be able to use the air we have. Already we have started diversifying the source of electricity energy in the country. So which is another very important pillar of development. So the level we are now is to try to involve the citizenry. The Constitution started with the word we, which means pluralism. Continuous collaboration, everybody should take it as a stakeholder. If you are a farmer, multiply your production so that we'll be able to have the surplus, we'll be able to export outside, to be able to generate foreign exchange. The industrialists should come and partake into it by establishing the industries, revamping all the moribund industries we used to have in Apapa, in Sharada, in Kakuri, Kaduna, and so many other places, so that at the end of it, the teeming unemployed youth who are constituting, some of them are constituting nuisance, will be able to have solution to that, will be able to have solution to economic problems, and Nigeria will really match with what we are seeing. We are one of the 10 countries now that have gotten reformed economy, courtesy of infrastructural revolution. And we are the 24th in the index of ease of doing business. So by the time we now succeed in replicating this at the next level, all over the world will be interested in coming to invest in Nigeria. And before you know it, we will be at the real level of the giant of Africa, so that Africa will be a continent that will be competing with other continents globally.
All right, just to say that the phone lines are open, and that the calls can start coming in at this point in time. And yes, our very first call that's coming through at this time is Willie, who's calling in from, yes, Willie from Calabar. If you're there, hello.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, go right ahead.
Hello, good evening, the panelists.
Yeah, good evening, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, we can hear you. Well, I think that call is lost there. All right, yes. In reviewing the state of infrastructure and transportation, for instance, what have we seen in the last 4 years?
If I answer that question, I still like to go back to the issue of conceptualizing ideas. We can, you see, as a scientist, for example, the more time I spend in conceptualizing an experiment, the easier and the shorter the time I spend in the laboratory. I can develop a model of an experiment that will effectively reduce the quantity of experiments I perform. So concept is still far, far more important if we want to see the whole infrastructure coming together as one. It's one thing to think you have the infrastructure, it's another thing to see it working. Working in unity. In other words, every sector having a joined together in a monolithic form to perform effectively. That is the first thing I want to...
Yes, just a moment. Let's see if we'll take this call, and then we'll return to you. From Rivers? Okay, let's hope we'll get this through. Obi from Rivers, go ahead. Obi, are you still there? Okay, I guess Obi is shy of speaking at this point in time, but we'll just advise that you... okay, you're right, you're back on... Okay.
Hello, sir.
Yes, go right ahead.
Hello.
Hello, go ahead.
Hello, sir. You hear me, sir?
Yes, we are. Well, let me just say this again.
I want to ask to my honorable leader.
Yes, ask.
I want to ask a question to my honorable leader, right? To me,
yes, go right ahead with the question.
Port Harcourt Seaport, what is the... Hello?
I can hear you.
Yes, I want to ask a question to the honorable Minister of Transportation, my leader.
Okay. Yes.
I want to ask the Port Harcourt Seaport. The Port Harcourt Seaport. What is the progress concerning the Port Harcourt Seaport? Since the population is in Lagos now, and we need Port Harcourt Seaport to open, what is the development concerning for this new administration that's coming up tomorrow? Because I believe in you and the President Mohammed Buhari that this Port Harcourt Seaport will be open so that more job opportunity will come from River State. Thank you, sir, my leader.
Okay, thank you, Obi. Right.
Yes, I saw that.
Yes. Well, he wants to know the progress on Port Harcourt Seaport.
As somebody who comes from River State and who has governed River State before, I get confronted from time to time why the Port Harcourt Seaport is not functioning efficiently as that of Lagos, and why people are not importing through Port Harcourt Seaport. There are just two reasons. The first reason is that vessels coming to Port Harcourt Seaport must have an insurance they call war insurance, as if you're in the country of war. And we have the highest, they pay the highest in the world. Highest. So why would somebody want to come and bath in Port Harcourt when Lagos is cheaper?
Yes.
You get the point? So why did they pay the war insurance? They behead every day. They killed a woman today at Garrison. The killing is every day. The killing is every day. The government is not able to protect lives and properties. Now, last week, 40 persons was killed in. 40 persons were killed in Ogoni, and you can verify. Call your team and to go out. If there's any day they don't kill, call me back. Tomorrow they will kill. Sometimes 3, 4. That's in the city. You're not talking about the rural areas. So until the government of River State is able to arrest the insecurity, we will not be able to go exit that war insurance. What has the federal government done? The federal government has awarded a contract of $195 million to an Israeli firm. In fact, that's what took me to Lagos today. They should be on the sea between now and July, but they'll be more effective by December, because the equipment that they are taking to the sea are not the equipment you just go off the store and pick up from the store. They are going to buy. They have 2 helicopters. They have 2 fixed-wing planes. They have vessels. They have fast patrol vessels, about 17, and they have 2 ships that's almost equipped like a warship. So until those people come in and clean out that river, then you can't have that business. As for the seaport, we have one of the best seaports in Port Harcourt, the honest seaport. And then there is the Port Harcourt seaport that can be fixed tomorrow morning if vessels are ready to come to Port Harcourt. So when River State asked me that question, I asked them, I said, if I was the governor of River State and I have the privilege of being a minister, and there's that kind of challenge, I'll be the first to fix the seaport to enable us get more cargoes. But you can't get more cargoes no matter what seaport you build in Port Harcourt until you arrest that security situation. And it affects Calabar, it affects Warri.
All right. Okay, let's go back to the phones now. We have Mohammed calling in from Taraba. Hello, Mohammed. Mohammed, are you there?
Hello.
Yes, go right ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yes, good evening. Go ahead. Just go ahead.
We have a cabinet member of the outgoing government and maybe the incoming government. I am not speaking to him as a cabinet minister, but as the Buhari campaign organization, because he's among the people who will hold to account should anything happen to the promises made. I am so much concerned because I'm from the village where the Mambila Hydro Dam is going to be constructed, if at all we will see it. This is 4 years gone with everything that has been promised. The only time we saw Chinese people was in 2016, around June, July, we couldn't see them again.
All right, Mohammed, that's it. Okay.
You see, if there is one project in the world today that is number one to the president, it's not the railway. It's Mambila. I don't know. The reason basically is because of the number of jobs it will generate, the power it will generate for us in the north, that way easing power off in the south and all that. The president is determined to construct it. But like we said, funding is an essential tool for such construction. And the president has personally visited China to see the president of China, to say, we want a loan to fix Mambila. So that's where we are now. And beyond that is that the last administration left for us a contract that is complex and which they have conflict. There are different companies in court and all that. We're trying to resolve all that, take them out of court and resolve it, and then see how much funds we can raise internally and externally to get Mambila working. So I don't think that anybody should blame the president for something that for 16 years been there, and now we're making all efforts. The president is making all efforts, personally supervising it. That's why it's part of the presidential infrastructure fund. So the counterpart funding will come from there, and we're quick to go once we can get the funds from China.
All right, so we're looking at this project as one that will see, more activities happening in that.
Once we can get funds, it is in fact before when we came into government, Mambila was number 4 or number 5 among the 5 top priority projects that the Chinese asked us to forward to them. Now Mambila has left number 5 to number 1. Railway was number 1. Railway has been pushed to number 2. I can tell the projects. Lagos Ibadan Railway, for which we got $1.6 billion. Kaduna Kano Railway, Coastal Rail 3, Mambila 4. I think the Niger Delta road, the East-West road, number 5. That's the order. But now Lagos Ibadan, we've gotten the money. Kano Kaduna has fallen to number 3. Number 2, as where it is, and Mambila, that was number 4, has moved to number 1.
All right. And calling in from Taraba is Danjuma. Hello, Danjuma, go right ahead.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening, go on.
How are you doing, sir?
Go right ahead with your question or comment.
Sir, I have this question to to the Honorable Minister. Hello?
Go on with the question. Well, let me just say this again. We said it at the start of this program. Once you see your name on screen, you don't even need to say good evening. Just go right ahead. Say, this is my question. This is my comment. Don't waste time asking, things that are not, relevant to this discussion. Just go right ahead. Forget about the greetings. Your name is on screen. It means that the call has been passed through. Okay, so we say it all over.
They should call me because by 12 o'clock I'll be called the former minister. So but
like the last caller said, he would still be able to ask you those questions because you were at the head of the campaign. Yes. So either which way. Well, as those calls keep coming in, yes, let's return. Okay. Oh, Willie called in earlier before. Right. Okay. Oh, Willie calling in from Calabar. Yes, Willie, let's hear you now.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening. Go right ahead.
My question goes to... Hello?
Yes.
Hello, my question goes to the Honorable Minister.
Right, go on.
Hello?
I can hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, can you
Go
hear me?
ahead.
Hello?
We can hear you.
My question goes to Honorable Minister Rotimi Amechi. When he was mentioning about railway line, he made mention of Port Harcourt, Lagos to Kano railway line, Lagos to Ibadan, Lagos to Calabar, and Lagos to Port Harcourt. I didn't hear him say anything about any railway that passed through the southeast. So my question is that not a form of marginalization? A country like Nigeria, where the southeast are the forefront of economic activity of this country, and there is no railway line that is through the east. That one aside, the issue of telling us that it's because of insecurity in Rivers State that is making the federal government not to fast track the seaports in Port Harcourt so that the activity will be just like that of Lagos. We cannot listen to that argument because even in Lagos, there is insecurity in Lagos. So there is no way that argument can sell. What we are saying is that they need to make sure that other ports are functioning so that this Apapa gridlock will come to a stop. Because if other ports are functioning like that of Calabar here, it's just if you go there, nothing is happening there. Meanwhile, or if all these ports are functioning, it will create more jobs in those states than everything centralized in Lagos. I think Lagos is everything about Nigeria is Lagos. We need to do something in a way that other regions will be happy too. We appreciate that all of us are from the same Nigeria. So that is my question. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you, Willie. So,
let's start with the issue of the seaport again.
Right.
I'm sure he didn't listen to me properly. If he did, you can't force an importer to import through a particular seaport, unless there are security problems. So every importer will decide where he will import from.
With less problems.
That's one. The second one is that you can't force a vessel or a ship where it will go berth. The vessel will decide where to go to. Now, Nigerians don't own ocean-going vessels. There's no Nigerian that owns any ocean-going vessel. So it means that ocean-going vessels come from outside Nigeria into the Nigerian waters and pick up the seaport they want to go to. The reason why they don't pick Port Harcourt, I'm talking about the importers first before we talk about the vessels, the ships.
Right.
The reason why an Onitshaman wants to import from Lagos, or even the man as close to Port Harcourt, Aba, imports from Lagos, is because if this good is to arrive Lagos at 150, it will arrive Port Harcourt at 250. The extra 100 naira is war insurance that you're paying.
War insurance?
War. As if you're in a state of war.
Which is the highest in the world.
The highest in the world?
Yes.
Not even Afghanistan. Not even Afghanistan, not even Iraq.
Yes.
Because the kidnapping, the Gulf of Guinea has moved from number 2 to number 1 in terms of piracy, kidnapping, armed robbery, and all that. Yes. So you then ask yourself the question: can Minister Amechi, because he comes from Port Harcourt, compel a white man to come and die in the river's water? The answer is no. It's safer to go to Lagos than to come to Port Harcourt or to Warri or to Calabar. There are no sentiments about that. There's no, if you like, appoint the person whose mother is from the coastal region. There's nothing you can do about that. So the first step is, I would say, pass it back to the River State government, because for what has happened so far, it appears that we're not having enough support from the government to reduce this crime that's going on. So, and the governor will be right to say the responsibility of the federal government as far as security is concerned. And I've told you here that the federal government has put in place a contract of $195 million with Israelis to try and buy equipment, train our security men, and ensure that the water is kept safe for those who will do maritime business. It's a huge business that's going on there. Because of insecurity, people are now contractors to escort vessels and escort IOCs to the platforms where they drill oil from, right? But the citizens are helpless inside the city. So every day people are beheaded in Port Harcourt and killed and all that. But they're helpless. They are not able to get the kind of money these IOCs get to score themselves. That is the seaport. He talked about railway. Then he wasn't listening. I had talked about Port Harcourt, Maiduguri.
Yes.
I did.
No, he talked about the southeast.
That's southeast. Port Harcourt, Maiduguri is southeast. Port Harcourt, Maiduguri, I can tell you how it passes. Port Harcourt, Maiduguri, by our right of way, goes through Port Harcourt to Aba, Aba to Umuahia, Umuahia to Enugu, Enugu to Makurdi, Makurdi to Lafia, Lafia to Jos to Bauchi, Bauchi to Gombe. Then you go to Damaturu and go to Maiduguri. Now, to go further, to tell you what the president has done, there's a new alignment that also takes off from Port Harcourt to Owerri. The same thing. Owerri to Nnewi, Nnewi to, is it Oka? Oka to Enugu, Enugu to Abakaliki, covering the whole of Southeast. The whole of Southeast. What's the cost? To about $12 billion with a seaport in Bonny and an industrial park in the railway industrial park in Port Harcourt. So all will cost you between $13.8 to $14 billion. The costliest railway that will happen in Nigeria so far. The costliest. What are we doing? We've designed, we've done everything, we're negotiating for a loan. I've said here that the Chinese don't have all the money you're looking for. Even if they have all the money you're looking for, everybody's asking for money from China. So let Owele know, like every other people, including Port Harcourt, because I come from Port Harcourt, and Port Harcourt will ask me, what did you do? That the rail to, when I say Port Harcourt to Makurdi, no, to Maiduguri, it covers the whole of Southeast. Including Owerri that is by the side, including Oka that is off the way, including Abakaliki that's also off the way. We have managed to connect them round. So we're negotiating the loan.
All right. Okay, let's go back to Jude Tabai, the national leader of North-South Movement for Peace. Again, we return to the question of transportation, and we're saying, within this period, what have you been able to see as an improvement? And what are the projections you have?
Well, first and foremost, let's commend ourselves that there's a big change in Nigeria today. 6 years ago, if you agree with me, if you go to our local airports, some of them were looking like private flats or hostel blocks of some secondary schools, most especially Port Harcourt, where we operate from. But as I speak to you today, I was very shocked. The last time I visited, went to the airport, what we saw is entirely a different scenario. Then if you go to other airports in the country, all over Nigeria, you begin to see that there's so many improvements that have taken place in all the airports. Virtually all the airports in Nigeria have turned from communal airports to international. If you go to Owerri Airport, the same story. So I think there are a lot of differences that have gone on. So many things have changed for good. Nigeria of yesterday is not Nigeria of today. Good, they think contractors now are working hard 24 hours to make sure they get back to work and make things work. So it's not like it used to be before. Like you can see, the excitement in the rail transportation in the country is something so unique. Everybody's excited. The rush for rail transportation now is almost beating vehicular traffic. That tells you that the citizens are already getting used to a new lease of life, which is rail. We all agree rail was almost a merry-bound, was a forgotten item, but like we speak today, it's the rave of the moment. And I think we're really, really moving on a fast lane, coupled with the fact that this administration have barely stayed there 4 years. You also remember this administration came into very severe challenges from the militants that made it very difficult for them to access funds for almost 2 years, because before that crisis was quelled and before they started repairing and going back to work for monies to start coming back into the country, it took some time. I think those are some of the things I need our viewers to appreciate. First and foremost, so many of these things we're talking about would have even gone far beyond where they are today, the stages. But with the bombings that took place, so many, it was a very serious setback. A very serious setback to this administration that people are forgetting. People are just saying 4 years, what have you got to show for? But they are not asking the things that have come, that are impediments that also came into the government to make sure they deprive them of getting the needed resources to move the projects the way the president actually wanted. So I always want Nigerians to look at issues objectively and analyze issues, and then before they say what they want to say. But plus minus, it's been a very go and good situation in the country, coupled with what we faced in 2016. Thank you.
Right. At this point in time, we'll take a short break. When we return, we'll look at other sectors to see just what development has taken place there within the last 4 years. Stay with us on NT Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
Nigerians, our fearless officers and men of the Nigerian military are winning the war against Boko Haram. Today, all occupied territories have been recovered and Boko Haram has been degraded. Our affected brothers and sisters are getting their lives back. However, they are now after you and me. In our mosques, churches, schools, motor parks, markets, entertainment centers, and public gatherings. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me. Nigeria, unite against terrorism.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The struggle for independence had been a long and tough one. Our founding fathers and compatriots sacrificed their comfort and even shed their blood. We cannot at this point in history afford to spirit away their sacrifices for immediate but temporary gains of today. Let us emphasize what unites and not what divides us. Working for the unity of purpose with a stronger vision for a better tomorrow. NTA, growing with the nation.
Nigeria, the only country we can train with remarkable potentials to excel. Let us believe in ourselves and change our attitude for the sake of our country and generations unborn. Let us revive our cultural values, which are our essence as a nation. Let us renew the spirit of patriotism and hope in our dear country. Do not take or give bribe. Be punctual always. No more African time. We can't expect to be global citizens and operate on African time. Join the queue. Insist that people are attended to on a first-come basis, no matter who they are or where they come from.
Nigeria, good people, great nation.
Make you report any crooked person, object or wakajube movement to police and security agent demo.
The security of our nation now work for all of us, so plus including me and you.
Nigeria, make we unite against terrorism. Now, Federal Ministry of Information and Culture bring on this message.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. The program today is assessing the development of infrastructure, the journey so far in the last 4 years. We've talked so much about rail transportation, and yes, we can never talk too much about it because of its importance to the economy. There are also roads, but before we do the roads and talk about what we have seen, let's touch a little bit on the partnerships, the level of partnerships that you've been able to start off in the area of development of infrastructure. And people have looked at this and said, over the years, everyone had depended entirely on government providing just about everything. And now the partnerships being evolved with the private sector. Let's talk a little bit about that.
For the railway, it's almost like a miracle. I hope it works out. The partnership that has evolved in the railway is the Central Line, which is about $3.9 billion. It's never happened anywhere in the world that some people are willing to invest in the railway. But now we have an investment from a Chinese company called CRCC. Now, that's the central line, which is from Abuja through Baro to Itabe, and then with a seaport in Warri. Now, what we have done is that the federal government will contribute 15% of the equity, and then the company will contribute 10%. Then the SPV will borrow the remaining 75%. Then the federal government will give them a guarantee, and back to back, they will give us a guarantee that in the number of years that we have given them that concession, they will be able to run the seaport, manage the seaport, and manage the railway to pay back the loan of $3.9 billion. The best partnership, but I hope it works. Why I say I hope it works, that so far in the history of railway, we are yet to see a partnership where the private sector gets involved and funds railway. It's always been a government thing because the money is huge and the return is extremely slow. Extremely slow. That's one we have done. Where you have partnership, the more is usually in operation. So I expect that once we conclude Lagos-Ibadan, there will be a partnership in the management of Lagos-Ibadan. NRC will want to partner, NRC will want to run it, but we think that the private hands will be better. But the way to go about it again is that if it depends on who becomes the Minister for Transport, we would advise him to conclude what we started. What we started is to urge the National Assembly to pass a law that breaks NRC into three. The infrastructure company, their job is to build and maintain the infrastructure of the track. The operation company, which means that NRC will set up a company that will compete with the private sector to run their rail line. So the infrastructure company will own the rail lines, while the operation company and other private company that want to will put their locomotives and coaches and wagons on the track and will pay to the infrastructure company. And finally, there will be the commercial company who will run around looking for business. So that's the partnership we're working out.
Okay, so as it is now, of course, it's clear that the private sector cannot come in and provide this until this laws.
$3.9 billion is 1-point-something trillion naira. How many people in Nigeria will bring 1-point-something trillion naira that way? He will get returns in 100 years.
All right, Minister.
Yes. First of all, in talking about partnership, anywhere in the world, government alone doesn't lead the nation to development. You must get a symbiotic relationship with the global community. Your country is a member, is a citizen of the world. And that is where international partnership matters. And international partnership doesn't just happen like that. You have to really work towards earning the credibility for you to be creditworthy, for you to come into your aid in that respect. And that is one of the things the coming of President Muhammadu Buhari has translated. Before 2015, countries are turning their back against Nigeria. Whenever Nigerians approach them, Nigerian government approach them, either for one bond or for one loan or credit facility or for any investment drive. But now, because of the singular quality he is made of, that is the quality of credibility. That credibility is the moral rectitude he is made of, the moral standard. And that is what makes him different from most of the leaders we have been having over the years in the country. So personality matters. And we have to we have to take into cognizance that when you are going into investments attraction, especially when you are going outside the shores of your country, whosoever you are sending is an ambassador that is supposed to be a representative of the nation. Agreed by Section 130, the president is the chief executive officer. But the responsibility transcends down. If you take, for example, Section 3 of the Constitution, it talks about vertical definition of what is government, talking about the federal, the state, and the local government. So politicians that are holding political responsibilities, either as governors, either as local government chairmen, either as members of the state or local government executive council, or members of the ministerial departments and agencies at the federal level, must be able to chew in line with the credibility quality of President Buhari. I wonder when you discover a minister or a governor talking about the government of President Buhari or the policies of President Buhari. It's completely voodoo in terms of governance. You have to say our government, the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Because by virtue of sections 4, 5, and 6 of the Constitution, it translates the trinity of the executive, legislature, and the judiciary. If you said because you are having feud probably with the federal government, with the executive arm, being new in the legislature, you will not pass so many legislation that will bring about ease of doing business in Nigeria. You are being disservice to the oath of office you have taken. The oath of allegiance you have taken is to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, not to the president. So it's a collective phenomenon. So long our leaders did not understand the importance of taking government as a collective phenomenon, that is federal, state, and local government, that is executive, legislature, and judiciary, the government at the next level should be able to bring about, whether it's the office of the SGF or office of whichever office that should be relevant, to be able to really permeate policies in uniformity, so that we'll be able to have uniformity of patriotism, uniformity of discipline, uniformity of nation building, so that when state government will not just go about taking unnecessary loans from one country or the other to the detriment of the nation's innate integrity. So quality of governance is important, but uniformity of the policies, we would like to see a situation whereby whatever policy the federal government brings about, every member of the National Assembly, every judicial officer should take it upon himself, the National Assembly, to make legislations that will really see to the fruition that particular seed that is being planted. And the judiciary should be able to really come online and see themselves as vicegerents of God in entrenchment of balanced justice, in dealing with whosoever is a saboteur to the collective enterprise called nations building. Until we have that one, until the governors understand that they have the responsibility to tune in uniformity. Tomorrow when they will be inaugurated, either for the second time or those for the first time, you are not going to be inaugurated as officer of so political party. You are not going to be inaugurated as officer of so geopolitical belonging. You are going to be inaugurated based on the oath of office of the responsibility of the citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria entrusted in you. So government should be seen as a trust. Followership must also be there. Sections 23 and 24 of the Constitution clearly makes it mandatory for you to discharge your civil obligation by giving your maximum support to the government, whether you are a businessman, whether you are a technocrat, whether you are an engineer, whatsoever you are. And if you are somebody that has anything to do with outside, demonstration of good qualities of statesmanship. You are an ambassador, whether you are a designated ambassador or you are just going there. The fact that you have the seal of authority of the customs service for you to go outside, or the immigration service, means you are having the sacred trust of giving Nigeria the best of representation wherever you go. We have to develop the goodwill. It is the goodwill that will create the possibility for you to really attract investment from people outside. And it is that which will bring about the possibility of international financial institutions to be able to lend credit for these gigantic multinational corporations that would like to come and entrench developmental projects in Nigeria at the next level.
All right. Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with what you said. You see, a few years back, maybe a few decades back, we had the Nigerian Railway. Before we knew it, a government came and retrenched all the knowledgeable people in that sector. And the railway died. What we are seeing today is trying to resuscitate the dead policies that we had in yesteryears. And that is why I keep saying, until we understand and own what we are doing now, we are not going to see the progress. Immediately the government goes away, we will start seeing the deadness of the whole system again. Ownership is the key to infrastructure. We cannot rule it out. Standardization of what we are doing as a document, as a policy, to be handed over, and in the spirit that the next person will take it and run with it, still remains the key to growth of Nigeria as a nation. We cannot continue to assume that we have built this, we have done this, we have done that, and not having the framework to manage it as a people. That is where we must. That's what.
Part of what has been blamed for the decaying infrastructure was again the question of maintenance of what you had. So let's look at that from.
Yeah, maintenance comes in because in most cases all government come and start new projects. abandon what is there. Nobody talks about maintaining or even trying to understand building cost of maintenance into the budget. All budget comes with, I will build this, I will do this, I will do that. And at the end of the day, the old one that you think you have invested so much on start decaying. Ownership comes in again. We don't own projects. Successive government don't own projects. And until we start to understand that every living thing is built on principles. Whatever we do is built on principles. And until we acknowledge that fact that we are living to fulfill principle, the belief we have in us, which must be holistic, which must be patriotic, which we must owe. Until we get to that point, then we just find that each time we are investing new money into new things, or trying to bring back something we have neglected for a long time, that is dying.
Well, Leader, the point has been made about what's causing issues for the Port Harcourt seaport, for instance. But again, it can be extended to other sectors. The question of having the environment to be able to develop the infrastructure in the first place, of course, even where you have the infrastructure, the destruction to existing infrastructure as a result of so many other things. It could be man-made, it could be, nature. In many cases in Nigeria, it's man-made.
Yeah, right. What the Honorable Minister said very clearly here, he said, the biggest problem we're facing, why the other ports in the region cannot survive, is man-made. And that's where I want to speak. It's very unfortunate that we allowed a scenario that was supposed to, where we would have been able to control, to get to this stage. This is the most bitter part of the entire process. Niger Delta, where we come from, like he rightly said, vessels can't come in, big ships can't come in because there is a special value that you have to pay for any big vessel to come into that part of the country. And that's man-made. And when it's man-made, it is the onions on solving that problem lies with us. Now, what is the problem? We as a people, we must stand up and challenge some of these issues. I am, for one, I've never been comfortable when I hear issues of man-made, when I know these are people that are not spirits. These are human beings that are known. These are people that live in have their houses, have their wives, have their children. And I believe once we're ready for them, we'll go for them. The Niger Delta, I know where I belong, from head to toe, an internal member of the situation. There's nobody there that's invisible. The so-called youths that are going about destroying vessels in the high seas, they're there. Once the chips are down, they'll be brought to the table. That Gulf of Guinea, people are operating. People have links with foreign vessels, where they're even told when they are coming in before they go and hijack. If I tell you issues about it, look, this is not the forum to discuss that. If not, if I go into details, I'll tell you that these are things that are well planned. And so when the issues of insecurity are there, the governors of those states have a very vital role to play. You see, the federal government can't be everywhere. If I were to be a governor, I know what it takes for me to get this sorted out. Very easy. These boys who go about Gulf of Guinea harassing big vessels are known. They are not strangers. They started from the creeks before they started going offshore, because they make big money. For a particular vessel, they can rake up to 1 billion, 800 million, and for that, they do that at times. In a year, they can go twice. And then for the ones within the creeks, they are there. The onus is on the governors to put up the machinery. Let me tell you, Nigeria is a place that with little money, you can get every result you want. When he was there as a governor, I can bet you he never messed up with anybody, he never toyed with anybody. He gave them fire for fire. He let them know that it's not going to be business as usual. And so people were running helter-skelter. You don't pamper this boy. If you pamper this boy, they will bring you down. So that is one area which we need to talk to the governors from the Niger Delta area to look into and work with the federal to see how we can solve it.
Still under the aegis of infrastructure, what have we seen in the development of airports, for instance. We talked about the railways, the airport infrastructure today. What has gone into it? What are we looking at? Because I'm going to ask Nasser the same thing, to look at developments there as well.
With me?
Yes.
But let me make you laugh a bit. Why let me make you laugh? As Minister for Transportation, we're rehabilitating the Itabe-Warri rail line. You know, we constructed Lagos to Ibadan. Not one community, not one armed robber, not one any kidnapping whatsoever. And we're coming to the end. Then we commenced rehabilitation of the Warri-Itabe rail line. After Itabe, once you enter into Edo State, the communities around there to Warri were paying, they say we should pay festival fees. We should pay appearance fees. 2 weeks ago, I saw the request on my table. And I just said, not approved. Why?
What are appearance fees?
Exactly. Exactly. That's what I said, make you to laugh. So the reason is that the federal government of Nigeria has army, they have police. If you want to construct the rail line and somebody says you must pay appearance fee before you put some soldiers there, let them come and appear. There wasn't magic in Port Harcourt when I was the governor of Rivers State. It was clear to me that the government has the instrument of coercion. And so if you don't compel the citizens to obey the law, nobody wants to obey the law. Nobody wants to obey the law. It's referred to as enforcement. That's why they use the word enforcement. If you don't enforce the law won't enforce itself. It will be another legislation passed by the National Assembly. But to respond to the question of the aviation infrastructure, when we came in, the greatest challenge we had was safety. I hear that most pilots couldn't communicate among themselves while flying. The instruments for such communications were either non-existent or bad. So between myself and the Minister of State, we agreed that that was important to focus on that, because you see, what people refer to as aviation is aesthetics. Oh, beautiful airport. But for me and for passengers, what is critical and more important is safety. To be able to fly from Lagos to Abuja or Lagos to Port Harcourt without dying. It's not the beauty of the airport does not save you. So in that period, the Minister of State for Aviation focused on safety. Once we achieved safety, we were not scared that there will be plane crash and all that. Then we began to focus, the Minister of State for Aviation began to focus on development of the airport. Then they were shouting Port Harcourt Airport was the worst. Well, now it's one of the best we have in Nigeria.
Congratulations, Minister.
Let's first give that to the President and then to the Minister of State for Aviation before you talk about the parent ministry, which I head. Then after that, they focused on Abuja, and then the Lagos Airport. They will still commission the Lagos Airport, and then the Kano Airport. And they have all of them. I wish you visited them. They're all of international standard, and they are the same. Then I usually tell people, most people won't like it, that no matter how bad the quality of construction of the old airports was done by Senator Stella Odua, she started it. Yes. In most cities, they were abandoned, but she started it. And what you saw was that either they were overpriced or underpriced, or something went wrong. So a review was done by the Minister of State of Aviation for appropriate pricing and to help conclude the airport. The Port Harcourt was such a mess in the sense that you pay the man, he will not do anything. I had to invite the FAA man and say to him, learn how to manage this man out. How to manage him out is to say, how much are we owing you? He says, you're owing me 500 million. It's okay. I pay you 300. What remains from the work is 200. I take the 200 from you and help you to complete the job so I can exit this airport. Now we've exited the domestic wing of the Port Harcourt Airport. The international wing is completed. It's been put to use. The domestic wing is also being completed, but the departure, this thing is not yet in use. But so, and it's almost in every state. But don't forget that not all the airports are viable. Not all.
Well, and that's one issue here.
Yes.
What to look into.
Yes. One thing you must appreciate is the disposition of nationalism and patriotism in the exercise. When you take the aviation sector, for example, the current government, is not in any way given consideration of any political coloration regarding spread of its infrastructural developments. For example, Rivers and the case of Enugu airports, Port Harcourt and the case of Enugu airports, they've received the most excellent boost that they never got during the reigns of the governments of the parties in power in those states. They've gotten it. It's practical. You can go and see it. And then, before the coming of this administration, virtually it was a history when you talk about airports of Kaduna and Kano. Now they have been completely revitalized. Not only revitalized, but the airport situation in the country before the 2015, we were among the worst countries in terms of air aviation. Now we are at the front of the consideration of quality of air safety. And that is the reason why, if you observe in the past 4 years, there is very serious reduction in terms of air mishap in the country. We have that reduction very seriously. And apart from that, even the quantum of the international aircrafts landing and taking off from Nigerian land have increased. Before that time, you don't have even international airlines like what do you call this Dubai airline, Emirates, and major ones, KLM and the rest, landing even in Abuja airports. They only land in Lagos. But now you have them landing not only in Abuja, but in all other important airports that we're having in the country. And because of the refusal of the government to segregate, say, we must develop airport within the particular state under which we got quantum of votes, it has decided various state governments are taking into queue. They are establishing airports. And the Federal Air Force Authority are really complementing the efforts by providing the needed enabling environments. And as a result of which, even international flights, for example, the flights to Mecca, for example, for Hajj pilgrimage, the same thing with that of Jerusalem. Our domestic airlines now have gotten the capacity to take greater quantum of the percentage. This forthcoming Hajj, for example, one airline has got it about almost 60% of the distance. It's a domestic airline, which in those days is normally this Ethiopian, Sudanese, Saudi Air, and Indian airlines that are normally the ones to the succor of the Nigerian pilgrims. So we must appreciate that we have moved to a level whereby we are being recognized as a very important star in the international map of aviation industry, courtesy of the government efforts in the last 4 years. Thank you.
Well, yes. Yeah, I want to say development is good. We are making giant strides. But again, what is the level of Nigerian participation in some of these things, particularly the engineering component that I represent? What is the level of, let's say, in 20 years, 30 years time, most of the parts used in this industry will be domesticated in Nigeria. As I keep saying, the future matters. Let's start thinking as we move on now. We are doing good things. We are doing this. Let's start developing standards. Let's start developing the enabling research environments that will assist us to not just be consumers of all these good things, but also a very serious partner in contributing to domesticating most of these things in Nigeria. That is the key.
Because if you emphasize too much on this issue of ideas, please, sir.
Yes.
You're talking about domestication. Hold on.
Yes.
Now, you see, the Nigerian engineers, Korean in particular, must ask ourselves, what is the quality of education you get from the Nigerian universities?
Correct.
You must ask.
Yes,
because you're not demanding that.
I'm not taking that.
What they're demanding is to say, give us the contract for railways, for instance. If Nigerian engineers have the capacity to build railways, it is the pleasure of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to give it to them. The reason for it is that whatever money you spend today on foreign contracts goes outside the country. I feel ashamed that I go to Indonesia, I go to all these countries, and as I'm talking to you today, they are constructing their own roads. Definitely. Please tell me one bridge, one flyover that our Nigerian engineers have alone developed without foreign assistance. So what we must do is that Nigerian engineers in Korea must compel the government to invest in engineering
That is what
faculty.
we are saying the same thing.
Hold on. But you must do it.
Yes,
you must get government. You must government to say the university shouldn't graduate engineers without proper education and training. I was a governor, so forget my experience as a minister. And there was a period we asked, let us see the status of education in Nigeria. And we discovered that there were schools that were using stove. To do what?
To heat.
Exactly. Was it the right thing? The answer is no.
I know.
What has the Nigerian engineer done to stem that? Let me give my experience with railways. It is my own pleasure and the president's pleasure to ensure that we are able to transform the railway engineering in Nigeria to a similar standard as South Africa and Indonesia. Why do I say that? The Chinese got the technology to build railways by inviting GE and General Motors. So, and gave them the necessary tax relief to be able to develop Chinese cars in China, to develop locomotives and coaches in China. In 15, 20, 30 years, they took over and began to build their own. Now, so what are we doing here in the case of railway in Nigeria? The first step we've done is to say to the Chinese, there's a contract we awarded, $500 million contract, to build locomotives and coaches or rolling stock generally for Lagos to Ibadan. But we told them, you can only do 15% in China. The rest, 85%, should be assembled in Nigeria. So build a factory. They are building a factory now at Kajula. Kajula is in Ogun State, where for 5 years, they will assemble. After 5 years, they begin to manufacture. Right. Secondly, we said to transfer that technology is not by taking technicians to the place and watching Chinese do whatever they want to do. Build a university for us. And they've agreed to build a university at Daura to train Nigerian students. They've agreed to take 300 Nigerian students to China to go and study railway engineering. They've taken the first 70. To domesticate that technology, you must have those who have the knowledge of that technology now.
Thank you very much.
And so you must ask as secretary.
This is more important achievement than saying we are building infrastructure. Because
so if you don't build infrastructure,
no. So believe me, at the end of the day, what matters is
how would they transfer the technology?
We never said anything about this since we have been talking.
Yes, it's because you've been emphasizing as if
I did, and I had to top it off from
no.
People get to know some of this very
you've been emphasizing as if we also assemble here with ideas and we go home, those ideas will convert to infrastructure. They will not now.
People need to hear this.
Okay. Now let's take it a step further. In the question of ownership, yes, the deficit has been addressed, and massive investment in roads, rail transportation, power, and so many others, including in
agriculture,
water. All that is going on. But again, it's also been identified that if there isn't ownership, if the people do not believe that this is theirs, then they can go and vandalize them, they can go and destroy them. And part of the problem you're facing today was as a result of this. So what would you say would be the way to ensure that these infrastructure that we're beginning to see now will remain, will be sustained, will be maintained, even as we improve on them?
Yes, I think basically the shortest cost to solve this problem has to do with private sector involvement. You know, because if you leave this in the hands of government, totally in the hands of government, it will continue to be the same story as we used to be having. But the private sector has to come in at this stage. And I want to believe that as a government, once we've finished with the actual work, we should engage the private sector to come in and partner with the government to run these things that we put in place. If that is not done, this Nigeria we know there are changes, things are happening fast. It's not like it used to be before. With the coming of President Buhari, it's a different story. But if we need to sustain this pace, then we must have that partnership drive. You know, if that is done, I bet you this country is going to be going greater, and we'll have better stories to tell and give to our children. Yeah.
All right, I know you said that at midnight, some of the things you've been talking about.
I'm a former minister. Now I'm a former minister.
Yes, a couple of minutes past midnight. But then we will take it from where one of the callers said you drove the Buhari campaign. So we can still put those questions to you, all the promises that were made and how they have been addressed. Do you sometimes worry when people, mostly skeptics, scoff and you say, look, we have developed this, we have built this. And some people say, well, let's see how long that lasts.
Well, the Kaduna Abuja Railway has lasted for 2 years now. It was July 26, 2016 or 17.
Savior of our people from bandits.
Well. And it's lasted. In fact, before I left the office, we have put in process the procedure by which to go for maintenance of the Kaduna, because you see, it's not supposed to last more than 2 years. Is it the ballast? The ballast are the stones. You're supposed to change them regularly. Sometimes you're supposed to change them every year. But you see the way it is there now, everybody's happy, but you don't know that it's due for replacement. So I expect that the Ministry of Transportation should make provisions for its replacement before the end of the year, or from beginning of Abuja to Kaduna. So whatever you construct, you must always keep aside funds for maintenance. It is not completely correct that government can't run business. 95% of the business in China is run by government. They're owned by government. The only reason why government is not able to run business in Nigeria is there are no consequences for action. So now you put a government official in charge of railway, for instance, MD Nigerian local company, say, don't hammer. So the money meant for development, the money meant for maintenance, he gets a contractor who gives him 20 or 30 or 40%, and the surely job is done. Now, if you punish that managing director for stealing, then the next person coming will not do that. But what has happened so far is that people steal, nobody catches them. If they are caught, they are not punished. If they are taken to court, they are granted bail. When they come out there, they're not able to prosecute the case to conclusion. So, when you talk about how long it will last, it depends on the focus of the government. You finish constructing, you must put provisions for maintenance. You must ensure that the individuals who run the thing are efficient. If they're not efficient, you remove them. If they mismanage, you punish them. But in Nigeria, there are no punishment for failure.
Well, one of the key issues the administration undertook was to say, look, we are going to take this development to every part of the country, and no section of the country would be left behind as development goes ahead. In the last 4 years, given the level of decay and deficit that the administration inherited and the paucity of funds, to what extent has it been able to
achieve that? I think the person to give credit to that is the Minister for Works. Works, power and housing. He's done well with roads. Here, like he will say, there is no state that the government is not doing a road. Okay, let's start with River State. They will say, what are we doing? But I've forgotten that the Bodoboni Road is in River State. And at the time the past government was in charge, that contract was about 49 billion naira. Now it's 120 billion naira under construction. And it's all on top of water. That's a very strategic road. Literally in every part of Nigeria, the Ministry of Works is constructing one road or the other. I can't say that of railway. I can dream that of railway. So the president has said, I should make sure they get the railway to every state capital. Wonderful idea. It's good. Politically suave. Is there the money? The answer is no. Because the amount of money to take to construct road is what we use to begin preparation for railway. I'll just give an example. The railway from Lagos to Ibadan is 156 kilometers. Is $1.6 billion, and that's about 600 and something billion naira. But I'm not sure the Kano Abuja road is up to that. The Kano Abuja road is about 150 billion, and it's longer. So in the case of railway, it's more expensive, more capital intensive, and therefore we can't say in 4 years we'll reach every state capital. What we've done is that in design, in projection, we've put in place an architecture that enables any government that takes over from us to continue from where we've stopped. And we did continue from where Goodluck stopped. And we never failed to give President Goodluck the credit when we say that the railway from Kaduna to Abuja was 80% completed. Two things happened. They could not overcome the Catholic Church, the Daughters of Charity at Kubwa. And being a Catholic, I just went there and spoke to them as a Catholic, reassuring them that they should allow us complete it. We will be able to pay them later. So they allowed us to complete it by demolishing the hospital we found there at the alignment or right of way, and we completed it before we were able to get them new land and pay their compensation. Then the next reason was that they didn't pay their part of the counterpart funding was not completed. We had to complete that. So basically, we must try to reach everywhere, but we don't have the funds for everything. But Ministry of Works is everywhere.
All right. But I think I need to there's something we're missing here. One of the very important components that we should appreciate about what this government has done is continuity. You know, most times, even in the previous governments, one president might take over from the next one and run his own programs, irrespective of how important that program is to the nation or whatever they stand to lose. But here is the president. Just take, for instance, he never abandoned any job. Yeah, critics have always come to say, oh, he's not done any project of his own. I think that's the worst disservice to Nigeria. This man came in and continued from where the previous government stopped, and things are working. Nigeria is moving. I think that's something that is missing, which we need to let the populace know that those stories should be changed. Because if you have a house and you're building it and your son comes and decides to abandon that house to build on that one because he doesn't like it, it's somehow, you know. So those are some of the key points that they need to be aware of. Continuity is the biggest achievement any nation can ever go to grow with.
Yes. The aspect I want to talk about is most of what is hampering infrastructural entrenchment, like His Excellency the Honorable Minister said, has to do with paucity of funds. We cannot continue to be a debt-ridden nation, begging for funding on any project. I expect at the next level, the government should, as much as possible, one, educate the citizenry on their corporate responsibility, civic obligation, for them to utilize whatever assets, whatever connections, whatever contacts, whatever resources, whatever knowledge they have for the development of the country, because they are the stakeholders. Secondly, government should lead by improving in fiscal discipline. We should be able to have the government infrastructural setting whereby we will be able, at a pinch of a computer, will be able to know what is the potentiality of our Nigerian crude oil. How much potentiality do we have onshore? How much do we have offshore? How much of our projected barrels of crude oil is being stolen? How much is actually being sold? How much out of the one that is sold is actually going into consolidated revenue fund? How much is going into royalties? Government should reevaluate the quantum of the potentiality of the richness we have. And then secondly, most of these revenue generating agencies that are defaulting in remitting the actual revenue target, they have been designed to remit every year. We should be able to be serious, either to be re-evaluating the leadership in those institutions or to be applying sanctions to whosoever is this. That is two. Number three, chambers of commerce, relationship with other countries. We should be able to exploit diplomatic ties we have with the ambassadorial missions either within Nigeria or the ones we are posting our diplomatic officers outside the country. We should be able to concretize our relationship in that context so that we'll be able to exploit a lot of bilateral and multilateral cooperations whereby we'll be able to get a lot of support that will bankroll a higher quantum of entrenchment of infrastructure development in the country. If we go into this and then go in again by issue of budgetary projections, from the year 2019, especially today that we are at the next level, government should make it upon itself to be able to finish whatever is called budget by the end of August, so that we'll be able to have the National Assembly deliberate on it to finish it by the end of November, so that we'll be able to have restoration of January to December budget cycle, especially from the incoming year, which is 2020. And by that, we should be able to have a machinery to be able to be checkmating budgetary implementations. We have a very important parastatal, I think it's under the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Fiscal Responsibilities Commission. That parastatal should really, if it is moribund, should be reactivated so that we'll be able to be having, it is like provost marshal. Every 3-4 months there is supposed to be expected report of the target achievements of every ministerial department and agency in the country. We should be able to really make it perform its duty. What of NIATI? What of the African peer review mechanism? What of this one, what do you call, GIABA relationship and all other things? We should be able to exploit all this so that we'll be able to have governance in the real sense of patriotism. Everybody that is in the position of leadership of any component of government should take it as a responsibility of trust, should take himself as a representative of God given to administer that particular place on behalf of the over 200 million Nigerians, and should know that at the end of it should be accountable either to the government or to Almighty God. We should be able to really government to be supervising the operations, the resource productivity of the particular people that we are appointing to manage the respective districts. Like I said, the government agencies that are responsible for supervising these things should really be up and doing, and then government should really be up and doing in increasing budgetary releases. Because no matter how excellent you have budget component, if the release is poor, then you are translating ab initio the possibility of shortcut or the possibility of cut down in the expected quantum of progression and by extension the development of the country.
Well, Prof, as we wind down, what are your projections for the next?
My projection is on education. We can't rule out education in development. Every strata, not just engineers, whatever profession you are, you have a stake in nation building. And until you know what to do and have that political consciousness, the philosophy of the nation driving whatever you do, you will be a very bad player in the game. So we really need to get more people involved in knowing that there is a nation called Nigeria that we all belong to. We must start thinking Nigeria first before we think of ourselves and our village in doing whatever we do. If we can do that, believe you me, it will not be long before you see the very big transformation we are going to have in this country. I think that is the major thing. And I think this government has started it. They've done a lot of it in fighting corruption. But believe you me, we still need a monolithic, developed philosophy to drive this nation, particularly the education sector. The rot in our national education is you can only imagine it. But those of us that are in the education field know how difficult it is. Know that education today is more like just graduate and go. It's not outcome based. Outcome has relatively been ignored in place of excellence.
Well, three things as we wind down. We did see some action with regards to inland waterways. The Barrow port, after so many years, saw some action. And taking you back, there were certain promises the president made at the Barrow port when it was being inaugurated. Talked about a rail link between Barrow and Abuja, and so that goods can be evacuated. What is the state of that now?
I thought I mentioned to you that we've awarded a contract by PPP of a rail line called the Central Line from Abuja to Itabe, and with the seaport in Warri, passing through Barrow. So they were able to sign all the contract documentations, or documents rather, for the people to come and commence construction, and for us to make our own catapult funding available.
Well, and of course, as you would recall, Mina was a railway hub. And at the risk of Nigerians asking where...
Right from Niger State.
Yes,
oh, no wonder.
So, where in the scheme of things is this major railway town called Mina?
No, it's part of the it's part of the Lagos Kano. You can't get to Kano until you pass through Minana. So it's taken for granted. I don't have to call. If you want me to call all the committees that all the strategic.
No, that's the idea. That's the idea. Because I see that the common man wants to hear that.
Exactly.
You know,
the villages. I don't know what the villages, but
the
major cities for Lagos Kano will be. We've gotten to Lagos, Abuja, Ibadan. So that is almost coming to completion. We'll commence from Ibadan once we get the loan. Ibadan to Oshobo with his port Ekiti. Oshobo with his port Ekiti. Then Oshobo to Ilorin to Mina. Then Mina with his port to Abuja. If we continue the way it is, then Mina to Kaduna, Kaduna to Kano. But the Chinese is advising that instead of going from Mina to Kaduna, we should do Mina to Abuja and connect the current Abuja to Kaduna, and then do Kano to save money. Do Kano, Kaduna to Kano. That way, they are saying that we should strike out the Mina to Kaduna because there's already a link from Abuja to Kaduna. So if you link Mina to Abuja, then you don't have to construct Kaduna to Mina. And that they have done. The eastern line, which is Port Harcourt to Maiduguri, starts. I've already mentioned that from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri.
Yes, because Willie was confused.
We had actually Port Harcourt, Bauma here, Enugu, Makode, Lafia, Jos, Bauchi, Gombe, and all that.
I suppose it would be fair to say, what do you see in the next 4 years? Because
revenue is key. Yes, as a member of the last government, revenue is key. Do we have the revenue now? It's not as buoyant as well ought to be. And let me go back to what Nigerians have said we should shut up our mouth with. That we should stop criticizing the last government and look forward, having given us the power. But don't forget that was the time we're having $110, $140 to a barrel. And when we took over, oil was at 28. So we are ready to move forward in terms of infrastructure, but Nigerians must recognize the fact that we don't have the necessary resources. So we do manage it in such a way that whatever available resources we have, we will be committed to infrastructure development. Because it's a shameful thing that Nigeria is not one of the first to 10 countries in terms of infrastructure development in Africa.
So, next 4 years, but you still have, Nigerians will still hold you to the promises that were made, positive funds or not, that want to see those developments go on, they want to see the infrastructure developed even to a higher level. Yes?
Well, don't what is it? No, they're right. Because if we knew that, if we say we won't perform, why see for the public office? We're saying we will, but the pace will not be as fast as it will be if we had the resources. We will develop the necessary things that the funds can afford, but one thing you must know is that there's physical discipline. And the financial impunity I talked about when I was giving my budget speech is no longer there. Nobody can just walk up to the treasury and take money. You visit Minister Mechi, he calls the DFA. DFA, how are you? Give me $100,000 and give to you. It's no longer there. So whatever resources we get now, we apply it to infrastructure.
On a final note, yes.
Yes.
You wanted to chip in something.
Yes, very important 2 points. Right. The government at the next level should consider BOT. Build, operate, and transfer. It's a system whereby the international conglomerates will be able to come and entrench infrastructure, and then they will be able to do it on commercial basis and recoup their investment over a time, and then hand over the ownership to the government and the citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And then the second thing is that the meeting between the president and the business concerned, do I call it yesterday and I have the led by Aliko Dangote, they should really display their patriotic disposition in that. They should be able to come in and bankroll their investments so as to fast-track development in the country. They should be able to come and invest in extraction of the rich solid minerals components that we're having and other areas of revenue generation, so that the issue of revenue generation will be minimally spoken by the government. Thank you.
Sorry, I want to add that in doing all these things, we must also be seriously environmental conscious and social conscious.
Right. Because I'll respond to you. No project in government is done without the The Ministry of Environment won't even allow you. So the first step to any construction is you have to obtain an approval. If you don't get the approval, you can't commence construction.
I know, and I've been part of it.
Right.
And I'm saying it in the first place because the projects you even mentioned is maybe 5-10% of the contributions of other people. that are working on the environment, doing their own thing. So environmental impact assessments are for big companies. The very small millions other stakeholders are largely ignored.
How? I don't understand.
A man that is using heater or fire, as you rightly said, laboratory that is using stove, is not impacting on the environment. It does. We really need to.
Well, but you must also consider that your house can't be burning and you're asking where is the rat. There are things that
big nations
there are
are
things.
crying.
Yeah, but the big nations have passed through what we're passing through now.
Yeah, agreed.
You can't be saying do environmental assessment on who is using stove. When you know that it will affect only 2-3 persons. Let's tell you what we did in Lagos, Ibadan. By the time you see, when you do the elevation, because in getting the alignment, you will elevate in some areas and come down in some areas. In some of the elevations we did, the EIA indicated that there will be, what they call this, flood. We had to develop a system that takes away water from the rail line and the community. We harvested the water from the community through a channel back to the sea. And we make sure that it's clean before it gets to the sea.
Wow.
So all that is the environmental impact assessment. So, but you cannot be doing that for stove.
Right. The time is just about up, and the only time would have nice to say thank you to all our guests, and thank you to Honorable Jude Tabai, National Leader, North-South Movement for Peace. Thank you also to Professor Joseph Odigure, Registrar, Council for the Regulation of Engineering, Koren. Thank you also to my Nasara Kogo Umar, lawyer and analyst on diplomacy and good governance. And of course, I'll just have to mention this. On Monday, we saw the clinking of glasses. And although, albeit it's belated now, we still like to wish you a happy birthday. We're hoping to see some of the cake around here.
Now I'm on the unemployed market. If you give me some money, if all of us contribute some money, I will.
If you recall, there's something they say, always save for a rainy day.
I wasn't able to save, so I would like my friends to pass on some money in the name of birthday gifts.
So thank you very much, Honorable Chibike Rotimi, and thank you for coming on this program.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so thank you to you too for being part of this program. Next week we'll reach you again on NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Bye for now.